Hello, dear friends, and welcome to the second interview in our Epiphany series of lights, reflections on the brightest lights in our congregation. And today, what a wonderful thing it is to be with Laura Elkins, who is the director of our Early Learning Center here at First Church, but also a beloved member. So I look forward to talking everything ELC and all the wonderful things of Laura's life in this interview today. So enjoy and welcome. And welcome to you, Miss Laura.
Thank you very much for asking me.
Fabulous. So here we go. First question. What is your full name?
Laura Jane McGann Elkins.
So we can all refer to her as Laura Jane.
Laura Jane.
Do you ever get called Laura Jane?
No, I really don't. I had a brother-in-law who called me Laura James as a joke when I was real little, and he would always do that. But Laura Jane, not much, unless I was in trouble.
Yes, of course. Right. Good old Southern tradition there, right? Yes, because I love to ask this because I go by my middle name. Jill is actually my middle name that my parents gave me. So I know how important middle names can be too. So very cool. Miss Laura Jane is with us today. Where were you born?
In Lansing, Michigan.
Get out.
I'm not kidding.
Lansing, Michigan.
Lansing, Michigan.
And is that the same place then that you grew up?
Yes, ma'am.
So you were there till high school, end of high school, college?
College, I went to college in Michigan and met my first husband there, and then he was in the furniture business, so we traveled. I've been in a lot of different states.
But clearly then the furniture business is what brought you here.
Mm-hmm, correct.
And so when did you come to the Martinsville area?
About 1982.
Okay.
So I've really actually lived here in Martinsville longer than I ever lived in Michigan.
Gotcha. Yes.
But that's still home.
Yes, that's where you're from. Do you still have family there?
Very little family.
Okay. The majority of your family then is here?
My sister really is the only one now that's here. But Mama, we had moved them down to live with us years ago.
Yeah. Because that was going to be my next question, actually. So clearly you have brothers and sisters.
I had 3 sisters, and 2 of them are deceased now. And my one sister, the one the closest in age to me, she's 7 years older than I am. She lives with us.
Oh, okay.
Or with me, I guess.
So only sisters.
Mm-hmm. All sisters, lucky daddy. He loved it. He loved it.
Absolutely. To be surrounded by women, why not?
He did.
Right?
He loved it.
Yes, awesome. That's great. Then clearly, question 4, I ask about her marriage. So you have been married in that you also have children, right?
Yes. My first marriage, I had 2 daughters.
Yes.
And Sarah and Melissa.
Yes.
And they were probably 8 and 12 when their dad left, and we met David, and he just took us right under his little wing, and that's just was the best thing ever that happened.
I know. I have to tell you, sometimes in doing these interviews, there's a very special part of me that loves to go into this little territory, because as I've been at First Church now almost 2.5 years, people love to talk about that burgeoning romance that they saw grow between you and David. And so, and unfortunately, by the time I came, David was really suffering from Parkinson's. And I remember when you had to put him in a facility and just how difficult that was for you in those final days and all of that. But why don't you tell us a little bit, a beautiful memory, a beautiful blessing of what that relationship was.
Oh,
you
man.
met him through this church, right?
Well, actually, no.
No. Okay.
Weird. He was a member here, and I was a member here, but we'd never met. I had no clue who he was.
What?
Yes, seriously, I had no clue. Our paths had never crossed, and I think that was a God thing. Our
yes.
paths did not cross. We both went to a prayer group at Marion Myers.
That Myers.
That Marion. And so we really never met there because my daughters were involved in things. So there were some Tuesdays that I missed, and maybe there were some Tuesdays he's missed. Or I like to think that God just did not let us see one another until the timing was right. And so, as Marion says, we used to leave prayer group and stand outside and talk, sometimes 30 minutes or so before we would head on to our separate homes. And we just got to know each other. And spiritually, we were so linked. We were just the same, everything. So
that's what brought you together ultimately, and what a blessing that is, right?
Yes.
So that's amazing. So you met. So do you remember the first minute that you actually saw him?
Yes, I do, and I didn't like the looks of him at all. Serious. I was like, who is that person? But I realized that he was from the church, so I went back and looked in old, picture directories and, looked, and he told me later he did the same thing and saw that I had children, and then he's like, oh man, she's married. And, so it just kind of, took us a little while, but actually where we really got to know one another prior probably was I wanted new carpet in the house, and that's his family owned a carpet business. And I met with his father. And one night, like at 7 o'clock, there was a knock on the door, and David was there, and he said, I'm here to measure. And I'm like, nobody had set up an appointment for somebody to come and measure. And I'm like, what? And he said, well, I can come back if this isn't a good time. And I said, well, no, I guess now's okay. So he came in and measured for the carpet, and then we sat and talked probably till the sun came up.
Wow.
And I mean, at that point, I knew I was supposed to marry him, but I wasn't going to say a word. And he said later he felt the same way. He knew that we were meant to be.
Yeah.
So we just kind of went with Spirit. And,
yes. And how long were you married?
26 years.
Wow. 26 years. Mm-hmm. And he had never been married?
He had never been married.
So when he married you, he just adopted your daughters into the family.
He said he took the whole enchilada. That's what he said. And I mean, and he loved it. I mean, he was just such a good, I wish you could have known him, because he was just very humble man, but very good. I mean, the kids adored him immediately because, they would, if they had a trouble at school or anything like that, they went to him. They didn't come to me. They went and plotted, how are we going to tell this to Mom? But he just always had such an easy way about helping them see the right way versus the wrong way.
Yeah.
And they didn't, whereas me, I would have just, had a cow and said, no, you're not doing this. And then they would have been, stubborn and said, well, we're going to do it. So, he handled all that beautifully.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful.
Well, and I remember the service that we did for David, and the fellowship time afterwards here in our fellowship hall, and that lovely table that you all had put together of pictures and remembrances of him. And from the pictures alone of that day, because I thought that service was so beautiful, I mean, even never having known him, I was just so aware of what a special person this was. And no one in this congregation could speak more platitudes about David. Everyone loved him. But then when I got to actually go through that photo album that was on the table and all those pictures, I just, like the fact that when you got married, you went to the pizza parlor.
Yeah.
I mean,
we were still hungry. You know, we socialized at the wedding and at the reception, and so we're like, we didn't really get any food. So we just kind of like went and got in the car and went to Pizza Hut, and just, I mean, because that's, David's thing was every Friday night you got pizza.
Oh, yeah.
So that was, you know, we're like, let's go.
Those little
And
traditions.
they knew him. I mean, when we walked in, they were so excited
Yes.
to see us.
And the other beautiful thing I think about David in this congregation that he's remembered so lovingly for is his long-held relationship with the Open Arms class, right? Because did he lead that class?
He helped start that class with Margaret Caldwell.
Yes. And that class has been in this church then for 30 years?
Probably longer than 30.
that, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really amazing. Just what his heart, you know, that he lived from his heart. And I just think it's such a testament, like you say, as we love to say, Miss Karen's phrase, it's a God thing that you all found one another. You know, we as we say, while we're making plans, God laughs, you know, and I think sometimes even big decisions in our life that we feel very strongly about, God is working in larger ways. And so no matter what happened for you, even in your first marriage, you know, maybe the tragedy of that was what allowed God to give you this, you know. It's I think it's just we never know, right?
Right. And I've sometimes thought too, how was God going to get me to Martinsville, Virginia?
Yeah.
How would I, if I was supposed to meet David, I had to get here somehow. So the furniture industry, that was the ticket. So it may have been, you know, I just feel like God always knew. He knows.
Well, and that's the beauty of the Old Testament stories. You know, doing so much of the Disciple Track, Fast Track Disciple series with the Bible study right now as we're working through the Old Testament. You read these stories and you just realize how one thing, when you get to a certain point, how one thing leads to another, and this person connects to that person, or this king connects to this that led to David, that led to Jesus. The lineage of all of that, you know, as we would think of that. But I think in modern times it's really about those chance circumstances that we have no idea, which is probably good, right?
Exactly.
That lead us to where we need to be.
Yep.
Because I feel like that too with me being at this church and this relationship. I very much feel that God called me here. You know, in my life, I would never have come to Martinsville, you know, except that I, at that point, was needing to be a substitute. You know, and it's like some people say, and then there was that moment when you came and you were the wild card. We had no idea who was walking through the door, you know.
Exactly.
So, but it ended up being exactly what God wanted it to be.
Yes.
And so I appreciate that so much in that story. Yeah.
Exactly.
Do you have grandchildren?
I do. I have 3 grandchildren.
Wow. And are they,
I love them.
then they all live here?
No. Sarah and her family live in Holly Springs, North Carolina.
Okay.
And my daughter Melissa and her husband live in Wilmington, North Carolina. So if
That's
I need
right.
to see anybody, I have to travel.
Gotcha.
But that's good. It's fun.
Yeah, that's right. That's fun. And it's not too far.
It's not too far.
So you have your sister living with you now.
Yes,
Got
yes.
it. Okay. Very good. Well, as far as like the director of a early learning center or a director in whatever capacity, how many director jobs have you had in your life?
Actually, this is more a God calling for me. I went to school, and I'm actually an interior designer. So I know. So I really, other than having been a parent myself,
Yes.
and, you know, I have no qualifications whatsoever to
Isn't that
do what I
amazing?
do.
And how long have you been doing it?
26 years.
So you took this job. So you've been the Early Learning Center director for 26 years. Oh, that's amazing, Laura. I would never have known that.
Yeah,
Because of how good she is in her job. And the fact that I've been working with the virtual learner kids has gotten me very much closer. I've loved it to Laura and to Nancy and to Nida, who are the teachers in that virtual learner group. But that's amazing. So therefore, in that sense, it's a calling, right?
It really is, because I took a leave of absence from work because my daughter was in her senior year, and I just felt like I wanted time at home.
Oh, yeah, wonderful.
And the pastor who started the daycare, Tommy Herndon, looked out into the congregation one Sunday, and he looked right at me and he said, I need somebody who's not currently working to come and volunteer with the daycare center. And I thought, I could do that because the kids are in school in the mornings. And that's what I did. I started volunteering, and then the director said, we like her, we want her to teach here. And I prayed about it, and God said yes. So it's where I've been. And
so you started as a teacher?
I started as a teacher. Mm-hmm.
Of which group?
The 4-year-olds.
The 4-year-olds. Mm-hmm. And you were in that position for how long?
Probably 2 years.
Wonderful. Mm-hmm. And then the directorship opened up.
Yes. And then they came to me and said, we would love to have somebody who's a member of the church be a director of the center.
Lovely.
And so I didn't want to do it. And I didn't want to do it because at that time we had a big van, and I thought, I can't be the one who drives the kids all over the place in that big van. But now I'm driving the bus, and I love it.
Listen, we had so much fun with Laura last year. Well, no, not last year. That was COVID year. But at Christmas of 2019, Miss Laura was one of the ones that drove the bus around for us while we were Christmas caroling in the neighborhood, and went to Kings Grant and went to
we went to the nursing home.
Yeah, went to the nursing home, and she, to see this little one jump right on up in that bus, I was laughing. It was so much fun. That's adorable.
It was.
So you have risen up. Yeah, now you're a bus driver too.
Yeah, I can drive the bus. I can do anything,
Yeah, right. Well, absolutely.
With God, we can do anything.
Well, that's what I was just getting ready. Mm-hmm. There's a wonderful scripture for that.
Yes, there
that's
is.
Right. So in that way, then, if you were a teacher there for 2 years, is that a part of the 26 years, or then you've been affiliated?
That's part of the 26.
Wow, but still, you've been there 26 years. That's amazing.
It is amazing.
And what a gift too, the commitment to that. But again, because I think it's so clear that you care about these children, but at the same time, that it comes out of your church, mm-hmm. I think is also so beautiful too. That's amazing. We're going to move on into something a little more personal now. The question is, was there a specific time when you gave your heart to Christ, or has it been more of what I call a life journey or a life process?
I would say it's probably been more of a life process. Mm-hmm. As a small child, I would say I can remember back to when I was probably like 4, mm-hmm. and I always talked to God. Mm-hmm. Not, prayers by, things that you learn as a kid, but I just always talked to Him, and I always felt close to God. And we were what I would call Easter Christmas people. I was not raised in a church per se, but I always knew God, and I've always wondered, where did that come from? Why was He so in my heart all the time when I really wasn't shown who He was?
When you were growing up, which did you go? Even though
if we went to a church, it was a United Methodist.
That's interesting. Because I wondered about that too. Because
mm-hmm.
the way that we, as we say, the way in the business we call them PECs. That's Palm Sunday, Easter, Christmas Christians.
Yeah, exactly. That was me growing up. Yep.
Yeah, but I think, wow, that's amazing. Knowing how deep your faith is now. Again, I'm always interested in that, because I think the real testimony to that, to me, is that I think a lot of people look at those of us who are so strong in our faith and think, well, you've just been raised in that all your life. And that's not true. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. I think I am thankful that since I was a very little child, really due to my parents and particularly my mother, that, we went to church. And when I was very young, my mother was still a Baptist then. So we went on Sunday morning, Sunday nights, Wednesday night. I felt like we were at church every day. But so I did have that upbringing in my life, and then we when I was born, they were attending a Methodist church, but then we went back to the Baptist church, and then ultimately we landed into the Moravian church. But I was still so young that I really know the Moravian church as my, my faith denomination. Right. But I think the beauty of what you're talking about is that because you didn't necessarily have that upbringing, you felt that connection to God.
I had a connection.
And so when do you feel, because I said all of that about myself because that's my process. We all have a faith journey process, I think. Even though I have met people in my life who distinctly can remember a moment like Paul on the road to Damascus when they felt God speak to them specifically. What then were the prime moments along the path that helped you really develop your relationship with Christ?
Well, having children, I knew I wanted them in the church. So we started going to the church when the kids were little, and actually I was one of the people chosen to write the children's church lessons way back when my kids were little. And so I had to learn because I didn't know really a lot of Bible stories, and so I was like, I really learned along with my children.
Oh, wonderful.
Which was kind of wild. I mean, the church didn't say to me, "Hey, do you know these things?" And I just had to start reading and learning. And then the upper room, I always took an upper room, so that got me started, looking as an adult into the Bible, and I knew I needed to read the Bible, and I have a lot of different Bibles, different versions of them, so that I can refer to each one, make sure I understand what I'm reading.
And I think what I've been working with the kids and through the Auntie Jill's Neighborhood series is, to that very point, talking about and helping us develop a devotional life. Because I think that is so key. I know that even for myself as a musician, I think a part of the reason why I have always appreciated my devotional life, because it's the same for me as when I go and sit down at the piano or the organ or to sing, to practice. When I practice, there's such a discipline and a practice and a process that develops me as a musician. And so the devotional life is very similar. And so my heart can't help but smile when you talk about the fact that you did that along with your children. Because I think that's that not only is that special for you with your kids, but I think that's how God works. So, and I think it's so important too. So then how long have you been a member of this church?
Oh, goodness.
You came here in 82.
We probably joined in 83, 84-ish.
Okay.
Probably when we joined.
What is your favorite color?
I'm a designer. I have a lot of favorite colors, but I think blues are probably what are calming, blues and greens. So I'm really into like teals and turquoise. But as I've gotten older, purple has made a comeback in my life, and I am so into purple. And I think that's a creativity thing, people who are creative love purple. And
well, it's a spiritual color.
It's a spiritual color.
It is a spiritual color. You and Sarah Whitmore. Sarah Whitmore is another one that loves purple. When I first met Sarah Whitmore out in the office area, she had on a purple coat, a purple hat, and purple gloves.
Yes, it's hard to say no to purple. You're like, ooh. But I have purple walls in my house.
Oh wow, you do right
deep,
now?
Kind of, eggplant in my bedroom.
Oh,
kind of
fabulous!
And I love it. I mean, I just couldn't wait to get that.
Oh yes. Oh.
Poor David.
Yeah. And you've got a little purple in your glasses too.
Yes, I do. I have purple glasses. Yes.
That's
gotta have a touch of purple.
Now, do you have any pets?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
We've always had pets. For 32 at least years, we have had a cockatiel that belongs to my daughter.
Ah, yes.
And of course, she could never take it with her, so it's at home with me. And I have a golden retriever and a cat.
Yes, because we met your golden retriever at the Halloween
That's
bash
right.
last October.
That's right.
Laura came dressed as a bebopper. That's so adorable. Because what is his name?
Jackson.
Jackson, yes. Jackson.
Oh,
Beautiful
yes.
dog. Gorgeous dog. What is your favorite kind of music?
Contemporary Christian really is probably my favorite. There are moments when going back and listening to 60s and 70s is still fun. You know, I
Yes.
love to do that. But I really, especially right now, this time in my life, I think since we lost David, I'm really into more spiritual praise. I love praise and worship. And, you know, that's just very important to me to start my day out singing and I end my day singing.
Right on.
So
Because David loved praise music.
David loved praise music.
So that's a way for you to keep connected to him, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, that's lovely. Do you play any musical instruments?
I have dabbled on piano. We've always had a piano at home,
Yeah.
but I never took lessons. My sister taught all her kids music, and they can pick up any instrument. And I think because she was so much older, she was 18 years older than I was, so her children were really more my age. And I steered clear of music because I just was in awe of them. And I went into art. So
Interesting.
I took the outlet of the being artsy.
So then did you do your postgraduate or your graduate work, postgraduate work in art, and that's what led you into interior design?
No, I actually went to a art school, and so it was
In Michigan?
In Michigan.
Oh, interesting.
Kendall School of Art and Design.
Oh, wow,
And,
fabulous. Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, how cool is that?
it was fun. And that school at that time had 4 different areas you could go into: illustration, furniture design, interior design, or basically Hallmark gets most of their people from there that
Wow.
designing cards and stuff like that.
Oh, that's great.
So, yeah.
Amazing. So you see, that's what you have to learn. You never know how
You
the
never
path
know.
will twist and turn. Because I know that, like, I do music with the virtual learners too, and two days a week, and then Laura often does art with them as well. So in that way, they're getting those art and music classes that have been cut a lot in a
Exactly.
lot of schools, not just public, also private schools.
All
So
schools, yes.
I've always appreciated the fact that you want that and desire that, but now that I know all this, it makes sense as to
Yes,
why.
it does. Yes,
And it's so important.
it is important.
Yeah.
And kids just weren't getting it. I mean, my children did not have art in school, so of course they ran away from it because they said, you know, with 2 parents who were drafting and doing all these things, they were just like, you know, no. So they went into music.
Yeah.
So they did the music.
Interesting. Yeah.
So I still have a piano in my house.
Wow, yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
That's
So
good.
that is good.
What are your hobbies that you do when you're not at work?
Well, oddly enough, obviously art is very high up there, but I don't ever really have time. And when David was sick, I packed all of that kind of stuff up and really have not done it. And so in the last 6 months, I have been undoing boxes in my basement and pulling out my art stuff, and I am making an art room.
Oh,
so
that's fabulous.
so that I will have, you know, all my stuff right there, and I'm hoping to have grandchildren come and do art things with me. They're looking forward to it. But
yes. So you're reigniting that again.
I am trying to reignite and find time for me because honest, a year and a half ago, I really didn't know who I was or what I liked. If somebody said, "What do you like to do?" I'm like, I don't know, because I
Yes.
didn't. I totally had no clue anymore.
Yeah.
Because the last 5-6 years have been totally caregiving, either caregiving here or caregiving at home.
Well, bless you for saying that, because I know we have a lot of caregivers in our congregation and in our virtual community too that watches these programs, and I think that's a real word. You're speaking a real word to that, in the fact that when people are caught, or not that they're caught in a bad way, but when they find themselves having to do that primarily, it can become overwhelming. You find your whole life can be defined by doing that. And I know so many people who do that, and they willingly do that. They, out of love for their spouse or their mother or their sister, even as you continue to do, they want to be able to give in that kind of way to care for these people. But as in everything, it can deplete you. And there comes that time to where you have to fill yourself back up again, right? And most people, that's such a good thing to speak to, because most people that you talk to that have been or are in the process of being caregivers, primary caregivers, that's how they feel.
Right.
That's one of the things that they keep speaking to. And so that's fantastic that you are taking care of yourself now in that, I mean, it's
very important.
It's very important.
And it's not an easy transition either.
Yeah.
It's not, because I was a mother. I took care of my children. I took care of my mother, and then David, and now my sister, and I have all these children here, and the families here are so important to me.
Yes.
And so to really find the time to do those things, but I'm working on it. It's a progress.
Good for you. I know, even for myself, I was saying to Jake just this morning that I recognize, and what I feel for myself is, and it's probably my personality too, but when I get overwhelmed, I feel a lot of anxiety. And so it's sometimes just the simple thing of being able to just stop and go lay down and put my eye pillow on my eyes. Or that's why I love to do exercise, because it releases that. But all of us need, particularly having now come through COVID too, and the restrictions of that, we're all needing to learn how to do self-care and love for ourselves, because when we have that for ourselves, the real truth is then we can give that to other people. And when you're in any kind of teaching or care profession, I think it's so important to be able to do that. I'm so glad we talked about that. That's awesome, because that is, and good for you. I will love to support you in that.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, that's amazing. Do you love to read?
I do love to read. That's something that is a family characteristic, and I don't know that I have anything really favorite that I read. Years ago, I found an author, Nita Jackson, who wrote the Yada Yada Prayer series, which I totally loved that. Certain books you just can't ever get rid of, and so I hang on to things like that. But I have all my mom's Mary Higgins Clark books because she loved Mary Higgins Clark, and so as a young teenage girl, I was reading Mary Higgins Clark, and I love mysteries.
Yes.
And but now, time factor, I'm probably more apt to read Max Lucado, or, what my daughter says, Mama, you don't need to always read self-help books. But, and that's true, I don't, but I do love them.
Yes.
So, but I mean, I have Nicholas Sparks books, I have Jodi Picoult books, and if you've ever read a Jodi Picoult book, that really twists your brain.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I hear you. Yeah.
So I like to read. I'm not real particular about what it is, as long as I can read it.
Yeah. I love Barbara Kingsolver, Sue Monk Kidd, in a way for that,
Right.
and also Anne Rice.
Yes.
Amazing writer too. Well, this leads us to the final segment of this, which is, what is your favorite hymn that we're going to sing today?
I love the Spirit Song. And
Oh, yes.
the Spirit song was not in the hymnal when I first heard it. The Spirit song I learned at a United Methodist Women meeting that was held in our church, and it was a Virginia-wide meeting that they came to our church, or maybe Danville District came to the church. And one of the ladies came and they brought that song and we sang it, and I just thought, wow.
It really spoke to you.
Wow, what a song. So I just love that song.
Yes. It's in our United Methodist hymnal. It's number 347. And so I'm so glad that was your song. That was also, didn't we sing that at David's funeral too?
Probably so,
Yes.
yes. We sang it at our wedding.
And you did sing, I remember you talking about that too. Yeah. Yeah, I think we did. Yeah, what a special, special song. So, Laura, what a great way to end today we invite you now to join us in singing her favorite hymn, Spirit Song. But I'm so thankful for you. I'm so thankful for all you do for us here at the church, and what a delight to learn more about you. And that's exactly what I hope this series does for all of us. Next week, we will be hearing from our very special Marion Myers, that wonderful spirit in our church, too. But today, thank you, Laura. And let's join now our voices in Spirit Song.
Spirit of the
love you, Laura, and we thank you for all you do for us and our children at First Church. And folks, as we say every week, in the spirit of Jesus, love one another.
Take care of one another.
And we'll see you again really soon.